Hello again, many thanks for joining us. I'm Ernest Mino. Now, 88 new health facilities will be built in the next 1 year at the district level nationwide. That's according to President Akufo-Addo in his 8th address to the nation on the country's COVID-19 situation. Now, the announcement is the latest among a number of measures the president has outlined in the country's fight against the global pandemic. Though exciting, how strong is Ghana's economy in supporting these new projects in 12 months? Any options on the international and domestic markets for exploration, and in what form exactly? We'll get more on these questions soon, but first listen to the president once more on the building of the new hospitals.
We're going to beef up our existing laboratories and establish new ones across every region for testing. We will establish 3 infectious disease control centers for each of the zones of our country, that is the coastal, middle belt, and northern, with the overall objective of setting up a Ghana Center for Disease Control. The recent tragic CSM outbreak, with over 40 deaths, has reaffirmed the need for ready access to such infectious disease control centers, even though in our time, nobody should die of the disease. Early reporting is what is required, and I implore everybody to heed this call.
And so that's President Akufo-Addo telling us what will be done as far as, improving our health system. He talks about the building of 88 new district hospitals across the country. And these are districts that do not have major health facilities. Now, he also talks about new regional hospitals, 6 of them in the newly created regions that will also be built. And so, we are looking at 94 of hospitals or facilities to be built to improve our healthcare delivery system. Will the economy be able to support this? We'll be exploring this soon. The president has been talking about a number of measures put in place to make sure that Ghanaians come out better after this pandemic. Now, let's go to Zoom now and speak to a health economist with the University of Ghana Business School. That's Dr. Patrick Isumin. Doc, thank you very much for your time here on Newsdesk. Now, we'll come to the health issues later, but first, we've done a number of things, a number of measures that have financial implications. The worry is that the concern is that we may be going above the threshold as far as the debt stock is concerned. What is your reading of this? Yes, Doc, if you can hear me, we're looking at a number of measures put in place by government, a number of funds, procured from the IMF and all these international markets. The implications it has on our debt stock, that is the concern for many. What are you reading into this? Well, we seem to be having some challenges with Dr. Isumin there. We'll get back, we'll correct that feed and get back to him to explore what the consequences are as far as our debt stock is concerned. And also, because he's a health economist, he will tell us about the impact of these 88 district hospitals and the 6 new regional hospitals the president is hoping that we can build within a year, and its implication for the economy as well. Dr. Patrick Isumin is a health economist with the University of Ghana Business School. Would also be joined on the phone or via Zoom shortly by Sydney Kesley-Hayford, also an economic analyst, and we'll bring you all of those analysis right after this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on Newsdesk, and we've been joined again by Dr. Patrick Isumin to bring us some analysis on the president's announcement of the building of 88 district hospitals plus 6 regional hospitals. Doc, when you had the announcement, what was your reaction, especially when the president has announced a number of measures already with financial implications?
I think it was definitely a good thing. We've known that we've had these challenges in the health system for a while. So I think taking advantage of the crisis to strengthen the health system is very important. I think, as the president indicated, there's a lot of inequities in the distribution of healthcare services and the distribution of health facilities. And this tends to reflect in the health outcomes that we see. So if you look at the major health indicators that are reported by the Demographic and Health Survey or the Multiple Indicator Cluster Surveys, you will see that there are huge rural-urban disparities in a lot of our health indicators. And that is because of the availability of facilities and service delivery. So overall, I think, just like the president has said consistently, we need to take advantage of the crisis to bring some fundamental changes in the structure of our economy. So some measures had been announced earlier on, and now they have also announced these measures on the health sector. So I think overall, for me, it was a good thing that the president announced. Yes. I just hope that it doesn't just end with simply building of structures, because as we know, there are several instances where facilities have been built, but they have been non-operational, either because the initial equipment required were not provided, or some of the supplies needed are not ready. So I just hope that it will not just end with construction of the facilities, but also the other measures that are required to make them functional, and also other measures that will strengthen the overall health system.
Yes, so it's a good measure, like you're saying, but when you look, and like you've just mentioned, that some of these structures are put in place. We have quite a number of them. In this year's budget, the finance minister outlined a number that will continue in terms of construction and some that will be put to use. It is true that the pandemic has exposed the lapses in our health system, but should we necessarily be doing that now, considering the financial implications? I want you to chew on that for me. Sydney Hayford is on the line with me. Let me pick his thoughts briefly. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. I don't know what you make of the president's suggestion. We are going to build 88 in all 94 facilities within a year. What do you make of this?
Well, it's always good morning.
Good morning, sir.
It's always a good thing to build up the infrastructure for the future, and we definitely need hospitals. So the idea is a good one. I see no reason why he shouldn't try to do it. To do it in 1 year, though, might be a tall order, but certainly it's a good thing to do.
The concern is that our GDP, in terms of our public debt stock, is projected to hit 76% of rebased GDP. We didn't plan for this, obviously. It means that we have more financial obligations. Will the economy be able to sustain this?
Okay, well, I heard the news bite, but I'm not sure what period it is that he's planning to do this. He just says
within a year, actually.
1 year.
Yes.
I'm not sure we have a right to assume that 1 year is going to be this year or next year. He hasn't been clear on the matter, so it's a difficult one to.
So he actually did say that this will happen between 2019 and 2020. So I believe we are looking at putting things in place, fast-tracking the process so we can get it started.
Well, then yes. Then whether or not the debt stock is high or not, the question is: do we need it? Do we want to do it? Do we want to guarantee the safety of the people of the country? If the answer to all of those questions is yes, 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 then we must find the money from some place. Either we borrow it, or we internally generate it, or else we transfer funding from one of our projects to this. The president is showing that he definitely wants to make sure that the safety of the people is guaranteed. And his primary concern seems to be enough facilities to be able to reduce deaths in the face of this pandemic. So I don't know exactly where the funding is going to come from, because it doesn't say whether it's going to come from budget support or whether it's going to come from external borrowing, which he will do. So it's very difficult to say whether or not he can actually achieve this.
When you look at the 2020 budget, the 6 regional hospitals are listed in there, and we know that the appropriation bill mentions some $7.5 million for health infrastructure. So as far as the 6 is concerned, perhaps provision has been made already, but in terms of the 88, that will be the problem. Are there options for us on the international market? We've gone to the IMF already, we've been to the World Bank. What options can we explore?
There are plenty of options on the international market. The international community is already saying that there has to be a lot more support to developing economies for us to be able to build the infrastructure. However, don't forget that the international community itself is struggling a little at this stage. How soon the whole world can come out of the crisis in which we are in and be able to developing economies is a different matter. I think I have heard somewhere along the line that quite a bit of the debt that developing economies are carrying is going to be forgiven, and there will be the opportunity to free up some space to be able to do all of this. But see, we're building a case on inadequate information. The president did not say where he was going to source from. And I find it very difficult also when we don't have any idea of how much each of the hospitals will cost to build. It's a tough discussion to have, because the information is really not available. He hasn't said very clearly how much he's going to spend to build each hospital. So it's difficult to quantify and to make any assessment on how much debt will build up because of this. But there's a growing economy. Ours is to look at what our needs are. Do we need 88 new hospitals? I would say we do. What type of hospitals should they be? We haven't said yet. If they are going to be regional hospitals to cater for a national development, that's a different matter. But if they are going to be district hospitals and the standard to which they will be developed is not very high, and therefore it will not cost too much to build, then the analysis will be different. At this stage, it's difficult to make any conclusion just based on what he said about the 88 hospitals.
Sir, kindly hold the line for me. We also have Dr. Sumain on Zoom with us. Doc, let me also throw that question of propriety to you. Yes, the system has been exposed as far as the health system, the lapses in our health system is concerned. But the analysis is also that we have done quite well in managing this pandemic. Shouldn't we be looking at planning post-COVID to have this implemented instead of the rush that it appears we are attaching to this?
So first of all, I think when the president announced that we will do this over the next 1 year, I think it's really part of the post-COVID planning, trying to put in measures to ensure that going forward, our health system is strengthened in such a way that we could be, whenever another crisis like this happens, we'll be in a stronger position to deal with this. But having said that, I think one of the things we should notice that, constructing the health facilities is just a first step in terms of building the health system. So the World Health Organization has about 6 pillars for building a resilient health system. And so some of the things that we have struggled with, some of the things that we have been exposed during this crisis, is the lack of availability of essential medicines and medical supplies at the health facilities. So clearly you notice that yesterday the president, and in the previous update, the president had announced that there had been measures to boost some of the PPEs. So that is great, but I think going forward, we shouldn't wait for a crisis before we hurriedly put together resources to ensure that the health system has the supplies it needs. I think it has to be a matter of routine, that the essential supplies, essential medicines that are needed to keep health systems running are always available. So for me, it's a right step, but it's just a first right step. If we simply construct facilities and we don't have the required staff and we don't have the required medications, it will not necessarily strengthen the health system. The other area that should be touched on is the financing. So it looks like since we went to National Health Insurance Scheme, there's been some change in the dynamics of how healthcare is financing, especially the procurement of supplies and medicines, essential medicines. So now the facilities provide services and they are reimbursed. And we've noticed that leading up to this period, there's been a lot of complaints by the health providers in terms of delay in reimbursement for services that have been provided. And all of that severely impact their ability to provide services as and when needed. So I think it's good to build the structures, but we need to take a systems approach and look at all aspects of the system, not just constructing the facilities, but rethink about the financial model that we have, whether, that we can do something to ensure that those unnecessary delays that happen with the reimbursement do not occur. And then also making sure that the reimbursements, as well as the other means of providing the equipment for the facilities, are really done. Because I think, for me, yes, we don't have enough facilities in several places, but I think the biggest thing that this crisis has exposed is lack of medical supplies and equipment.
Mr. Kingsley Hayford, he brings our attention to something very important, which is the issue of beyond the structures, beyond the facilities, the human resource and the other things that needs to be put in place. I know that you've raised on a number of occasions the issue of our payroll and how government seem to be the biggest employer, and how the private sector needs to be prepared, needs to be encouraged and be in the position to employ a lot more people. Should we be looking at some public-private partnership going forward? Hello, Mr. Hayford.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, I don't think we should even be looking at public-private partnership. We have to move this economy to a point where we are purely private sector driven. Mm-hmm. Government has its role to play. It should play that role. But as much as possible, we have to allow the private sector to pick up its portion of all of this. If government wants to get involved in building the infrastructure, fine. But if there is a possibility that we can finance most of these hospitals through the private sector development, that for me is what we should do.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time here. That's Sidney Kingsley here for joining us with some analysis, and also joining us via Zoom. We had Dr. Patrick Isumin, a health economist with the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on NewsDesk. Now, let's do some other stories. Now, large numbers of possible job losses are staring employees in the eyes and causing a lot of panic. Now, this is one among many effects brought on by the global pandemic. Here at JoyNews, we've had to introduce a new show to calm tempers and to bring some clarity to many workers who are unsure about their job security. The premiere was yesterday, that's at 2 p.m. We had host Samson Ladia Yenini, host a private legal practitioner, Susanna Asabia Nyampong, on options available to employees. Here's an excerpt.
In as much as there are changes to the employment situation, the critical question is, how do we solve the problem?
Right.
Now, with a situation like this, admittedly, there are reduced hours of work. There's nothing that can be done about that. But does the employer have the right to simply state, well, I am reducing your salary by 50% for March and April. From there on, I'm reducing by 40%. Why? In these situations, I don't think it would have been beyond the employer to actually call the teachers or give them a bit of time that, considering these circumstances, considering the fact that you do not manage a class anymore, considering the fact that you're working shorter hours, and considering the fact that the students are home and may not even be willing to pay as much tuition fees as they have always been paying, can we find a way to, let's say, reduce your salary, maybe by reduced rates, then see how well it works. Now, with the school year would have ended in April anyway.
Right.
Fees most likely would have been paid anyway. Is the teacher or the school management trying to make an extra profit or not?
Is the school management justified in seeking to reduce the salaries that appear to have become due March and April by 50%?
Well, on the face of it, and you know that with law, there's a difference between saying something on the face of it and what actually happens. But
right.
On the face of it, I wouldn't say that the employers were justified in doing that. Because even for March, the President's directives and the subsequent Imposition of Restrictions Act didn't take effect from the beginning of April, from the beginning of March,
right.
For you to say that I am taking half your salary off for March. Then what's the justification for doing 50% for April?
Let's explore this further. You know that the private schools have been hit by this, issue, the pandemic. A lot more teachers are being forced to take half salaries. Others are also being laid off. What other measures being put in place for these teachers and for these schools? Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to the national president of the Ghana Association of Private Schools, Damascus Tusurong. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on News Desk. Hello, sir. Mr. Damascus Tusurong, are you on the line with us?
Hello,
yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Now, a lot of your members, and I'm talking about the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, are forcing their teachers to take half salaries, and some of them are laying them off. Tell us how bad the situation is. Give us a national picture of how this is biting the private sector, the schools.
Thank you so much for this opportunity given to me. The reality is that private school owners are not forcing their teachers to take half salaries or anything of that sort. Indeed, private school owners are being forced to negotiate with their workers. In some cases, to take half salaries, and in some cases, owing to a discussion between the school owners and their staff, their services are being suspended for a while. And this is because, obviously, we are pushed to the wall. Now, what many don't understand is when the president announced the closure of schools, the announcement was done on the 15th of March. The very next day, the closure was to take effect. This caught many of us unaware. It's not as if we have prepared for this. It came midway through a term when, in the case of many schools, they hadn't even collected their term fees yet. And the moment a school is closed, this is a services sector. The moment a school is closed, you have 0% rendering of services, 0% production. Everything grinds to a halt. And in that case, you have 0% income flow. So it becomes virtually impossible for you to reduce any of your commitments. That commitments by way of payment of teachers' salaries, commitments by way of servicing of loans that many proprietors took.
Mr. Tutu, I think you have to reposition yourself. I think you have to reposition yourself. We are losing you along the line. But this claim of schools not taking their school fees, having collected school fees, I think is quite questionable, because the case we dealt with yesterday on the law and COVID, for instance, this teacher works in the school where the school has taken full fees at the beginning of the term. Unfortunately, schools would have to close down, and now he's being told that he has to take half salary for March. For April, he doesn't even know where his salary is going to come from, whether or not he's going to receive it. And we received quite a number of complaints in this manner.
Yes, obviously you would have few schools that were able to. You see, I'm sure you are talking of elite schools in the urban area. The vast majority of private schools are located in rural communities, where some take their fees either on monthly basis, on termly basis, and so forth and so on. The number of schools which ask their children to pay yearly fees are not many, quite honestly. So yes, you have few schools where they had finished paying their yearly fee. In that case, no one can justify not paying March or April salary. But I am talking about the vast majority of schools which had not finished collecting their term this year, and which were cut pants down when the announcement was made abruptly.
Let us look at how we can solve this. As an association, what are you doing about this?
As an association, we haven't rested on our oars since the issue came up.
Yeah.
The first thing we did was to write a petition to His Excellency the President of Ghana, asking for his intervention in the face of what was happening. Because we do not have government intervention, the situation looks very dire indeed. We may have, like other industries are doing, we may have to lay off either all our workers or majority of our workers. It's already started in actual fact. Our schools are going to rot. You go to the schools, it's empty, dirty, filthy, cobwebs all over the place because there's virtually nothing going on in the school. So we appeal to His Excellency for his support. We heard about the 600 million stimulus package, which we have also followed up and put in an application and made a case to be given part of that. But even outside of this stimulus package, we think that our sector is a specialized sector of a unique challenge which needs to be looked at differently. So some form of support for private schools to breathe in some oxygen again and come back to life is what we are looking at here.
And do you have an assurance so far of any support, concrete measures that will be put in place to support you?
We have not had any concrete pledge of support yet. What we have had are promises that we will be factored into the 600 million stimulus package. But the modalities are not yet very clear. We are following up on it, whether we can get concretized for that for applying for it.
All right, and we'll be following up on this with the Finance Ministry to find out how businesses like yours can access the 600 million stimulus package that has been set aside for such purposes. Thank you very much, sir. That's the National President of the Private Schools Association, Damascus Tusuron, joining us there with some, information on what they're doing so far.
Hello, good morning to you. Welcome to Business. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has affected the world in an unprecedented way, and Africa is not left out. The continent's leaders are still deliberating the way forward for the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement set to commence in July this year. While calls have been made for implementation of the CFTA to be postponed, Afro Champions Initiative, a set of innovative public-private partnership on the success of the trade agreement, is calling on African heads of state to rather use COVID-19 as a catalyst to roll out the initiative. Chief Strategist of Afro Champions, Michael Koto, has been speaking with my colleague, Ishra Ado.
The COVID-19 pandemic is really disrupting preparedness of the continent towards the July 2020 expected start of trading. And I'll give you a couple of ways in which it is disrupting the AFCFTA preparedness already. So the first one is that the Accra Secretariat of the AFCFTA was supposed to have opened in March. That had to be postponed because of the pandemic. So the Secretariat is currently operating temporarily out of Addis Ababa. They were in the process of recruiting staff and teams to work with the new Secretary General who had been appointed. All of that has been disrupted. Number two is that there were some critical negotiations to complete the outstanding negotiations in order for the July start of trading to start. So all those negotiations that were ongoing very rapidly have all been disrupted because the negotiation teams from the various countries cannot travel to meet and do negotiations. So negotiations have also been disrupted. Country preparedness obviously will also be impacted because now countries have diverted all their attention to fight the pandemic. And one critical way in which this is impacted the AFCFTA is, as you can see, most countries, virtually every country on the continent has closed their borders in order to be able to fight the pandemic. And this is a continent that was looking forward to start of trading. Obviously, countries have reversed from open border mode to closed border mode. All of that is ways in which the AFCFTA is being impacted. The levels of trade have also gone down now in intra-Africa trade, obviously because of the border closures and all of that. So the impact has been big already. There are calls in certain quarters that the African Union should postpone the July start of trade of AFCFTA because of these reasons. And Afro Champions has looked critically at the situation. We've asked some really hard questions and tried to be creative and say, should this be postponed or other ways in which the continent can still ensure that AFCFTA takes off in July, even if the pandemic doesn't end early. And the position of Afro Champions is that the African Union should not postpone the July start of trade.
The Community Alliance Foundation has donated a Techie Tap to Multimedia Group Limited. The Techie Tap is locally manufactured equipment to aid in proper hand washing. Hand washing has become important as the country intensifies its fight against coronavirus pandemic. The donation by Community Alliance Foundation is in recognition of Multimedia Group Limited's contribution to educating the public about the pandemic.
We have worked in the social work environment for the past 17 years. And had experiences with hand washing, especially around children. The damages it creates for children, whilst regarding their school attendance and their health, the family health expenses. So we came out about 2 years ago and came up with this Techie Tap technology, where school children are supposed to wash their hands without contaminating the washed hands. With time, adults started asking about the size, the height, the weight, and everything. And so we came up with a Techie Tap magazine. We launched this thing in October last year during the Global Hand Washing Day. And just around the COVID period, we realized that there was a high need for it. The demand became higher. We felt Joy has done a lot for us. by promoting us, and so we feel it is just proper to do the real thing by giving them one of this for them to use.
Thank you very much for this wonderful innovation. On behalf of management of the Multimedia Group, I receive this product, which in my view is very appropriate, and will place it right in front of our Joy building to serve our customers and our staff. We will forever remain grateful, and we believe the adverts will be enough to ensure that more people will come to your end and ask for this appropriate technology as we forge ahead to fight this COVID-19.
And those were some business updates for now. We'll bring you more business at midday. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Have a good morning.